Hey co-stars, and welcome to part 2 of our Every Goa'uld System Lord in Stargate series. And you should know about these Goa'uld, because they're responsible for a lot of messed up stuff. Alright, let's go. First up, Setesh. Now this was a Goa'uld who found himself trapped on Earth for several thousands of years after the Stargate was buried. He spent his time hiding from humanity and establishing several cults which normally ended in mass suicide.
A new cult arose in England in the early 1800s, strangely enough near the location of Stonehenge. The cult had an enigmatic leader named Seth. Seth's worshippers, all of them, were found dead, having slit their own throats.
When SG-1 found him, he was based just outside of Seattle. Seattle. Maybe he had some famous followers. Perhaps he had something to do with Scientology too. Anyway, Setesh, or Seth as he was also called, was running his cult by using a compound called Nishta to mind control his followers. But although being controlled, they seemed to be creepily enthusiastic about the whole thing.
Do you feel strong enough to be in service of your god, Seth?
Yes, of course.
But Seth, although he took himself very seriously,
We're always happy to welcome new disciples to the bliss that only Seth can bestow.
he was kind of a laughingstock amongst the Jafar and the butt of some really funny jokes.
The serpent guard's eyes glow. The horse guard's beak glistens. The Setesh guard's nose drips.
Well, Teal'c found them funny anyway. In human history, Setesh was the brother of our next System Lord, Osiris. This System Lord was known as the first pharaoh of Egypt, and in human history was depicted with green skin. Like seriously, green skin. How are people not figuring out that the Egyptian pharaohs were actually aliens? Anyway, Osiris was married to his sister Isis because that's what they did. And in Stargate, Isis and Osiris had a bit of a falling out with Ra, who removed their symbiotes from their hosts and put them in stasis jars to be preserved for thousands of years. And these jars were then obviously disturbed by several clumsy humans. To cut a long story short, Osiris manages to get out of the jar and takes the body of Daniel Jackson's ex-girlfriend as a host.
Sarah?
That dude really has the worst luck with women. Anyway, now you've got an asexual Goa'uld with a male personality inside a female body. The LGBT community would have loved him. But before you go waving rainbow flags, remember, this thing is dangerous.
Make no mistake, Osiris will return, and the rivers of the earth will run red with blood.
So Osiris leaves with a ship that was buried under the sand for millennia and starts building up forces to become a System Lord again. Next up, Sokka. Now Sokka was actually an ancient Egyptian falcon god. But in Stargate, Sokka picks a very interesting personality from Christianity to emulate. Basically, Sokka modeled himself after the devil, and his domain is modeled after hell. Sokka himself wears red monastic robes and appears to have a vitamin D deficiency. And it was Sokka who was responsible for reviving Apophis with the sarcophagus after he'd already been killed like 1,000,000 times. Alright, next we're going to run through a bit of a quickfire round of System Lords that don't appear that much in the series before we get to the real juicy ones at the end. So, Bastet. She is a Goa'uld who, before the time when the Goa'uld were using humans as hosts, when other Goa'ulds were still using Unas, she was using a feline race called Sekhmet for her hosts. They had fur all over their bodies and feline features. Basically, we're talking about the cast of the musical Cats. You see, a lot of things in human society aren't what they seem. Yeah, aliens, again. Anyway, on Earth, people in history actually viewed her as kind and a protector of women and the homestead, and in ancient Egyptian mythology, she is depicted as a cat. Next we have Kali, who was one of the first Goa'ulds to take a human host. She served under Shiva and was worshipped as a Hindu goddess. Look, this is what she actually looked like in Hindu mythology. Lovely looking lady. And in Stargate, much like in real life, she betrayed Shiva. And she served under Ra and later formed an alliance with Bastet. Next we have Marduk. He was the patron god of Babylon, and it's also the name of this rock band. Nice looking bunch of guys. Anyway, in Stargate, Marduk takes control of a member of a Russian SG team after they disturb his tomb, and it doesn't end well for him. Next, Morrigan. She is a Celtic goddess worshipped by the Irish in history, who is associated with war and fate, and she's often represented by a crow. In Stargate, she's one of the System Lords who is at the summit where they vote to reinstate Anubis. I don't know if she was running some kind of bondage club or something. Anyway, moving on. Also present was Oluken. He is a god of wealth from the bottom of the ocean who is worshipped in West Africa. He also released his solo album of reggae music. Just kidding, that's a poster for some Oluken festival in Africa. Anyway, despite being attacked by Anubis, Oluken crazily votes to reinstate him as a System Lord. Next, Svarog. Svarog was a Slavic sky god who in human history is supposed to have looked like this. He looks like a nice dude, but in Stargate, he wasn't so nice. You hear his voice when he attacks a planet that SG-1 visit in the episode The Sentinel.
I am Svarog. From this day forth, you will serve me.
Next, Camelos. He is a System Lord who comes with you to negotiate with the Tauri after the defeat of Anubis. In human history, he was a Celtic god who was worshipped in early Great Britain and also Gaul, which is modern-day France. Another System Lord who came with him to that meeting was Amaterasu. She is a Japanese goddess from the Shinto religion, and her name means glorious goddess of the sun. She is thought of as a goddess of creation and defends the earth from the land of the dead. Yet in Stargate, she doesn't do that, and she was just a typical Goa'uld with a stuck-up, arrogant attitude. Next, Moloch. This was a deity worshipped by the Canaanites that supposedly demanded child sacrifice. The same deity that is allegedly depicted in the owl statue at the Bohemian Grove filmed by Alex Jones. And don't say Alex Jones didn't warn us. In Stargate, Moloch was into all the same stuff.
Any female child is to be sacrificed in the ceremony of fire immediately after they're born.
Basically, Moloch felt that since the male Jafar were better at winning battles for him than the women, he would just kill all the female children, just like Moloch in human history. Next, Thoth. He was a System Lord allied with Anubis. In ancient Egypt, Thoth had been the god of writing, magic, wisdom, and the moon. In Stargate, he was in charge of genetically engineering the Kull warriors that Anubis used instead of Jafar. And this brings us to Anubis himself. Anubis was a very old and powerful System Lord who had been banished by Ra, but he came back to threaten all the other System Lords, and for some reason they restored his rank. He also had a habit of showing up in random places.
I am Anubis.
And was also known for his very large mothership which dwarfed Hartak-class vessels. He was defeated at the Battle of Antarctica, although Anubis was kind of like the Emperor from Star Wars. You kill him once, and then he comes back. He was able to take on a formless state and move through multiple hosts very quickly before his ultimate demise. And guys, in case you're wondering, in ancient Egypt, Anubis was the god of mummification and the afterlife. Alright, now for our final System Lord in this video, and that is Baal. Although he's called Baal, every time the characters say it, it just sounds like Baal.
I am Baal.
That's it? Just Baal?
Baal was another Canaanite god and considered a fertility deity. In Stargate, Baal rises to power after the defeat of Anubis and threatens all the other remaining System Lords. And guys, I'm not going to tell you what happens because basically that would spoil the last couple of seasons of SG-1 for you. You're going to just have to watch it yourself. That is the end of our mammoth series on every System Lord in Stargate SG-1. I don't think we've missed any. There are a few other ones that may be just mentioned in passing in character dialogue, but basically I think we have covered every single System Lord that appears on screen in the 10 seasons of that show. If you can think of any others, please leave it below. Correct our mistakes. Love to hear from you. Alright guys, please subscribe if you're new for more videos like this. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, you can check that out on the screen. If you want to know about Stargate ships, I'll put a couple of videos about those on screen as well. Alright, we'll see you next time. Bye bye.